We are living in very interesting times, and I'm sure every generation before us has said that. But these truly are very interesting times for the simple fact that some core concepts on which human society was based, uh, status, wealth, identity, which were given to us, were hence fixed. Where I was born, who my father is, who my mother is, what access I had, defined our lives and our futures are in churn, and we are seeing that across every spectrum of our lives. Right? We are seeing that in gender. We are seeing that uh, it doesn't matter today who my father was. I could be as wealthy as Ambani, and we are seeing youngsters do that. I saw this young gentleman. I looked like him once upon a time, but I was nothing like him when I was his age. Right? I just didn't have the confidence uh, or articulation that this generation has. So, who are we? What is our place in society? Who can we be? Where can we go? Uh, Concepts of status and wealth, etc., are all in churn. Marketers are essentially followers. My simple belief is marketers essentially are not, they're very risk-averse people, right? They follow. And if you see, hence, the first wave marketing, uh, the first generation marketing was an outcome of the industrial revolution, right? You could produce more, you needed to sell that. There was peacetime. I say, and actually, there's a quote that says that consumption is the price that we pay for peace, right? Because you keep consuming, factories will keep running, and everyone is happy. Factories are not running, we are all unhappy. The second wave of marketing was all about, okay, media and consumption. Lots of media, lots of choices. How do I differentiate? Lux has to be differentiated from Dove. Different people will buy Dove and different people will buy Lux. Some people will buy the both of the brands, and I had to differentiate. The third wave, as we call this, it started about 10, 15 years ago, really, is all about this enablement that new technologies, which are in some sense responsible for the change that we are seeing all around us, good change, bad change, uh, came in, right? The third wave marketing was all about understanding that the cultural conflicts in the times that we are living in. And born was purpose marketing, or P for purpose, as I'm saying. I want to very briefly touch upon uh, one campaign which I have tried to articulate three key drivers of how all of this comes together in our times. We've seen the real purpose stories. I've worked with Mahindra on their RISE campaign that we worked for about 5 years, right? RISE, when it was born out of deep research that Mahindra did to say, okay, how is it that we impact people's lives? They came to conclude that when somebody buys a tractor, they're not just buying a tractor. And I've seen that. I used to work for another company called DCM Shriram, and I visited some villages as part of the work that we were supposed to undertake. And we saw that a tractor actually changes lives. It's not just a vehicle, right? It actually changes the fortunes of a family for generations to come. Because the produce goes up, I can produce more, I get more income, I get disposable income, I can buy maybe another tractor, I can install a pump in my field, and so on and so forth. So they did this deep research to come up with RISE. But when they got us and some of the other agency partners on board, RISE was still very nebulous. What does RISE mean? So what am I supposed to do? Should I stand up? Right? And then came in the three pillars on which Mahindra wanted to uh, kind of base their business. And the first year really went very importantly, and you'll understand the difference. Organizations, people in power have always been on a pedestal. I speak, you listen. I tell, you do. I write, you read, right? And the first year of the entire program went in just bringing the brand Mahindra down to become part of the community. Because in times of chaos that we are living in, what's the single one thing that brands are today looking for? Trust. In times of crisis, do you trust me? Do you trust me to be telling you what you can believe? We spent the first year just earning trust, building a community, right? And then we went to say, okay, Anand said we want to work with change makers. So the first leg of the program, which sparked the rise, was all about working with change makers. We were presenting the final campaign, and we were in this big hall. And he said, "Oh, but we want to be seen as an innovative company." That's the second pillar on which the second year went about rise price, solar and the autonomous car and so on and so forth. So from deep, high level thinking on purpose, we've come down to now Rajnigandha talking about purpose. You know, so it's become a bit ridiculous to take purpose to that level because some marketer, some advertising agency has gone and said, why don't we do a purpose-led campaign? Right? So I wanted to not talk about that because that's a long, elaborate subject, and I'm sure some of you are already familiar and doing excellent work in that space. So I want to actually just talk about this one campaign, and I. So this is an article that I wrote, and I've just converted that article into this presentation. So for those who are unfamiliar, this is a gentleman called Colin Kapernick. NFL football games were about to happen, and on the national anthem, he went down on his knees and kneeled. Some people took offense, and so on and so forth. He was put on the bench. Trump called him son of a bitch, right? And he was taken off of the games. And then last year, Nike made him the face of their 30th anniversary campaign. So we'll see the video. We'll talk about it. So instead of just limiting themselves to inspiring the individual, why did Nike go on, talk about a bigger issue? Because there is a context to why they hired this face. So why, he stayed on the bench like we spoke? Did they know that they were going to invite controversy? Did they know that it will go viral? Does that matter? Right? Why go beyond the individual? Why now? And you have to really understand that there are three big connecting dots that really are happening in our cultural landscape today that make me say it's not a question of they should have, they had to. They had to just do it. Right? The first one, really, I'm sure this image is familiar. And we come from a generation, at least Anthony and I, where Anthony's a little older, much older, uh, where we looked up. We didn't really have an identity as an individual, right? As a group, if at all, you could muster power, strength. But as an individual, you didn't really matter. You didn't exist. You were just a speck, right? But that has all changed. In the digital world, the connected world, the sense of empowerment that the individual has gotten today with the digital connectivity, not just digital connectivity in terms of consumption, but today you see people on the road. The empowerment that I see when I am on Twitter, it's like I can put my arm around Anand Mahindra and I can, hey Anand, how are you? Oh my God, I know him. People call Narendra Modi names. The kind of power, the strength that this medium has given from being completely insignificant, not knowing who we are, where we stand, social hierarchies have given way to a much more egalitarian digital structure. Today you see, you have access to Barkha Dat, Veer Sangvi. Veer Sangvi will write a thank you to you. Unimaginable. Right? The power of one is also, in some sense, the reason why we are seeing, we saw Me Too, and we'll speak about that in the next slide. Right? Why are Me Too now? Why are all these phenomena coming together? It's also very intoxicating, right? That the sense of power that sometimes the power is actually not as much as I would like to believe. I believe, when I was a small boy, we used to live in central Delhi somewhere, and there was this big tower, and I felt like if I could just jump and climb. What's the problem? It's almost like the childlike quality that it has brought back. It's very intoxicating to believe that I can actually change the world. I am the center of the universe. And that's one big shift that we've seen over the last decade. I would say social media really has brought about that big change. The second big change that we are seeing all around us is what I call there's a fire that burns. Right? We spoke about how there's societal churn, there's cultural tension, and brands like Nike, of course, know how to leverage that very well. But at a societal level, what we were speaking about, when I was a small boy, I used to love Asterix comics. Any other Asterix fans here? Lovely. And in one of the comic episodes, Mansion of the Gods, the Romans are trying to clear the forests, and the druid goes and pops a pill, and boom, a new oak tree gets not just but full size next morning. So, I mean, how does it happen? But real life is not like that, right? In real life, I'm a big fan of animation, and ma'am was speaking about movies earlier, and you were speaking about animation. In animation, anything can happen. In comic books, anything can happen. In real life, it takes 3 generations for real change to happen, right? 3 generations. We are seeing a very strong, one of the biggest movements to come out of social media activism, so to say, is Me Too, right? Feminist. Me Too is a representation of that, but the feminist movement has really, really taken off thanks to social media. And we are saying we are taking steps, but this change is still linear. Real change will at least take 2 more generations. My daughter's children will perhaps see the kind of equality that we are hoping to see. My wife runs a brand called Equality, which is about gender cool stuff for children and trying to bring, but social structures don't change that fast. These hierarchies in real life are taking their time. There's friction hence, right? A world which is united by brands is still divided by beliefs. There are still Republicans and Democrats, there is left wing and right wing. There are still people who believe that women should know their place. There are other people who believe that they should lead us. And this friction is not going away, right? Media, digital has again, I was very confused on whether I should talk about that today. I did a presentation at IIM Ahmedabad which was focused only on that one subject, which is fake news. Why fake news? And one of the big reasons for fake news today is the broken business models of media. Right? Print was the dominant new carrier of news. We were loyal to newspapers that we bought. There was TV, which was getting advertising revenues, and then suddenly this new animal called digital came in, and nobody knew how to make money off that. So clickbaits, polarization. The more polarized I make people, the more I divide, the more views I get, right? Algorithms have compounded the problem further because algorithms will now show you what you already believe in because it helps me get another click, more advertising revenue. So if I'm a Modi fan, I'll get to see more Modi stuff. If I'm a Trump fan, I'll see more Trump. But if I'm anti-Modi, I'll see more of that. If my belief is towards feminism, I'll see more of that. But if I'm not, then I will see something else. So divide and rule is now also the business model for media. Right? Algorithms, like I said, have compounded. All of this has created echo chambers. We have now started to, and it's happening to all of us. We are our politics. And politics decide who I am. We are seeing politics really take over our lives. It never did earlier. Because there is no respite from it. On a daily basis, on a minute-to-minute basis, I'm getting bombarded by information that I may not even want to see at a subconscious level, but the media has decided that I should be shown. So a fire that burns. And like I said, the outcome, which is very good, is Black Lives Matter, Me Too, are outcomes of that churn that we are experiencing. My client then, now the CEO at Malayalam Manorama, I think, Karthik, one of the wisest people, one of the wisest brand custodians that I've worked with at Mahindra, said something very beautiful to me. He said, Rajesh, I can summarize all human behavior into 2 defining properties. Everyone wants to look good. Everyone wants to look smart. I think it really summarizes our behavior as social beings. Think about it. Everything that we do is driven about how I will look to people, how I will feel about myself, and how people think of me in terms of my wisdom, knowledge, right, and so on and so forth. Everyone also wants now that we are in this third wave, so to say, we've got all the food that we wanted, we've got all the brands that we wanted, now we are searching meaning, right? Everyone wants meaning. And there are many shared causes that bring us together. Now, coupled with a lower threshold because I can now click a button and I can participate in a movement, right? I can plant a tree digitally. Ting, tree planted. Tung, another tree. Ting, nobody is counting. Another tree. Like you said, people will take a vow to donate eyes. It doesn't matter whether they did or not. But I vowed to donate my eyes, right? And online activism is one of the biggest stories of the digital revolution. Lower threshold, unlimited opportunities. It makes you feel good. And it makes you earn currency from your friends, your network. How nice I look, right? And who doesn't want to feel or look taller in front of our network? And hence, like I said, Nike just had to do it. Cultural brands understand cultural tensions and how to leverage, right? Power of one, a fire that burns. Everyone wants to look good. Everyone wants to look smart. They embrace, thrive. They're like living organisms today. Branding in our times was fixed. We used to do brand, what did we call them, Anthony? Brand manuals. Thick. They were like this thick. I have my dear friend Vijay has changed Paytm some 10 times over in the last 4 years. We don't even know today what, in some sense, Paytm started as. Right. We're living in completely different times. Brands come and go in 10 years. Right. And like I said, brands like Nike really understand that people recognize their power to go beyond the self, the seething disquiet, and the people's desire to stand tall. But people start to lose trust when purpose becomes a fad, right? It was not supposed to be a fad, right? Purpose was my defining mission, why I exist, what problem I solve, how do I do it differently from somebody else, how do I do it better? And then it becomes a fad, right? This new term, woke, right, is all over. And the Unilever CEO recently made a comment, I think at Cannes. Woke washing is threatening advertising's credibility and it's polluting purpose, and it's polluted. Actually, everything is polluted. Last elections, we brought this big report around social media mentions of 183 politicians. We ran it for about 14 months. Probably the biggest such study anywhere, I would say in the world, but let me come down on ground and say in India at least, because I know I witnessed it. This time when the elections happened, people said, will you? I said, no. A, too much money on my part. I'm sorry, I can't afford a very small company. We are even smaller since then. But more importantly, the data is all polluted. It's all polluted. Everything is polluted. Marketing is polluted. All campaigns are coming polluted. Right? Nobody, Rajnigandha is talking about purpose, right? So it's all very confusing. Now, V Company, very sad. It's very sad as an entrepreneur to see them go through this. But it's also, in some sense, over-ambition on their part. V Company's guiding mission will be to elevate the world's consciousness. Now, I understand that maybe they would have done that, but it's not evident to us, at least to me, how. I want to talk about this one campaign on backlash that brands hence receive when they try and do inauthentic. Can I get this back? The nice lady or the gentleman who helped me earlier. Thank you. Just go down, please. Yeah, Gillette. Yeah, thank you very much. So Gillette got a lot of backlash on this campaign. So now the thing is that they did this campaign and they got a backlash from the women and from the men, right? Women said, well, you charge us still more for the razors that you have for women, and you still got naked women in your campaigns. the men said, I'm sorry, you're making us look bad, and we are not going to buy your razors. So when you're inauthentic, right, and you confuse cause marketing with purpose, you know see it as a fad. You are inauthentic about what you do. There's no business connect, and we see that. I mean, there was a recent campaign. Shalimar Paints had a campaign where a girl with leukoderma is featured, and say all colors are good, something like that. And I said, there's no connect with. Just a random poster somewhere, right? Your audience may or may not understand, but you've done nothing on the ground really to support that. You've just got this one poster. Is it enough? Is that authentic? Is there a business connect with what you're doing? And over ambition. Not everyone, we have to understand that small brands can attempt to do what Nike does, and they can, but not every brand can be a cultural brand. So they have to really understand who am I and what is my place and what do I want to really do. You can do great impact by not doing just purpose-led campaigns and still going and doing work on the ground. Right. And thank you very much. My talk is done.